Nothing to see here. Everything's fine.
So everyone knows who you are by this point.
Let's see it. About now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Wow. There you go.
All right, now
No.
we hear you.
Perfect. Just need to get back to the. Okay.
Virtual too.
And then what I'll do is I'll have my laptop and take.
Okay, it's cozy, but we're working.
Yeah. This, oh, we're gonna do this. Perfect. This was just an elaborate lesson. Didn't even mind water.
It's the virtual
I
one.
don't know, I just took it as yours.
Yeah, it's okay, it's okay.
We're gonna start this
I'll
again.
take the water.
That was really sloppy.
No, it was very sorry. No problem. Let's see. I'm glad we didn't do it last meeting when we had.
All right, we're gonna start again. Take two. Paul and Ashley, can you hear us? Just as a test.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, take two. Welcome everyone to the Wednesday, August 18th, 2021 meeting of the Cohasset School Committee. This meeting is being held in person, but also virtual to allow for remote participation and to allow for remote viewership by way of Cohasset 143 TV and Facebook. Thank you for your patience. We had encountered some technical difficulties as we set up this hybrid arrangement here, which was tested earlier this afternoon, but it didn't work as intended initially. So here we are. Would all school committee members that are present please indicate so in roll call? Mrs. Clarion.
Present.
Mr. Dial.
Present.
Mr. Kearney.
Present.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Present.
Present. Craig McClellan. All committee members are present as of 6:19 p.m. So that's a start. We'll start off as we normally do with public comment. This section or portion of the agenda is reserved for comments or discussion points related to topics that are not on the agenda. So if you have such a topic or discussion point, please raise it now using the Q&A feature in Zoom, as there are no audience members present in person. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Perfect.
We do have a couple of comments.
We do.
We do. Now, I apologize. I'm trying to run the view on this. I'm not sure what folks can see at home. I'm just going to ask Mrs. Cleary, can you see me at home right now?
You can do it.
I cannot see you. I see Chair McClellan and Dr. Scollins. Okay, now I can see you.
Great. Okay.
Now I
It likes Jim McClellan.
It's motion sensitive, so we just have to get used to it. It's going to be, if you get seasick, just take a Dramamine. But Dr. Sullivan, I can't see so you might have to be the MC in terms of comments.
questions if it's easier for you to. It's up to you guys.
Oh, you can?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then, Madam Vice Chair, why don't you read some comments tonight, because I don't have that capability.
Okay, there's really just one. The address is the second comment. So it's from Robert Jeffers, 18 Spring Street, I think. First, I wanted to thank the board for all of their time on Monday night. You mentioned that you would revisit the mask policy in 6 weeks. Can I suggest you send a parent survey out before that meeting? Some of us were surprised to hear at 10 p.m. that some board members were using the number of questions as an informal poll of the sentiment of all parents. I think that was skewed, as those that agree with what the experts were saying probably did not feel the need to repeat their comments. In addition, some parents see this more as a science-based approach versus public opinion and did not realize they needed to register their opinion. Finally, a petition with 186 signatures was presented. While a lot of signatures, to put it in perspective, the petition on the same website for lights at the Cohasset baseball fields has over 1,300 signatures. Therefore, a survey could help give you a more balanced view. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jeffers. So just to touch on a couple of those points, Dr. Sullivan's going to discuss briefly what his intention is in terms of reviewing the masking policy when we get to the superintendent's superintendent's report. With regards to the sort of polling of individuals at Monday's meeting. That's not what occurred, at least for me. I was certainly commenting that I was acknowledging after a comment someone made that we were only hearing from, or more so from families that were against masking. I did point out that others decided not to participate, even though everyone was invited to do so. And it may be, I think, as Ms. Doxey stated from the Board of Health, her hypothesis was similar to Mr. Jeffers in that she believed that those who, quote unquote, followed the science believed that we would do so as well, and that's why their opinions weren't necessary. To the contrary, we held that special meeting to have an open discourse on the matter and hear everyone's perspectives. In my personal opinion, the perspective that following the science sort of infers that that's the right and only position, and I think all perspectives need to be taken into consideration and respected, as we would any differences in the public schools. So it wasn't really a polling, it was just pointing out that some people weren't participating. And then when we did say that, I think a lot of people did register their opinions, which was helpful, but that wasn't to act as some sort of stand-in survey. Surveying, we did consider, and we didn't utilize it in this particular instance. Dr. Sullivan, Dr. Scollins have used surveys in the past for things like busing and reentry questions, as you all know, because there was great participation in those. But they're not always accurate. And so we just decided to have an open forum, which we did, and we invited input for the better part of 6.5 hours to sort of substitute for that. So we will consider the survey further as you suggest, but please know that I don't think, and as far as the survey goes, the polling, I'm trying to just recall the points Mr. Jeffers made in his comment. As far as the petition goes and the number of signatures, I think that made a difference for one of the committee members in particular who noted that expressly. As I stated, those petitions, especially the ones that expressly invite spouses to sign, aren't, the numbers themselves aren't especially persuasive, but the fact that it's done is something to take into consideration. It's not the be all end all, but it's something to take into consideration and understand that people were strong enough in their position and their opinion that they rallied a certain number of people to do that. So, Mr. Jeffers, thank you so much for that comment. And surveys in future situations will be taken into consideration, I'm sure, by Dr. Scollins and Dr. Sullivan. Are there any other comments, Madam? Of course, yeah.
One point that's very critical for me is that my role here is representing the people of Cohasset with respect to public schools. And so these open forums are very powerful ways for us to get a feel for our community and what people are looking for and what people want us to do. So I really think, at least for me in particular, I don't want to just hear from an expert and defer to that expert. I feel like that is not enough. I do want to hear from the parents and the families in this community so that we're guiding these schools in a way that reflects the community's wishes. So I understand that, and I was very glad to see the outpouring of comments. I was kind of disappointed that people didn't participate earlier, and so when at 10 o'clock it was a bit late, but I was glad to see those comments come in because that gave us a fuller picture of what the community is looking for, and was for me very, very helpful. So I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to entreat people to continue to participate and to understand that it's very, at least for me as a member, a very important aspect of what I'm doing here.
Thank you. So thank you, Mr. Jeffers, for your support. I've seen your comments at the meetings and some of your posts on Facebook. They're thoughtful, and we appreciate the support and the continued participation in the school committee and the school district in general. Are there any other?
Greg, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add something. The petition is, just so everybody's clear, isn't anti-mask, or it's not saying that they're not saying that people can't wear masks. It's simply saying that it should be an option. So I just want everybody to be clear of what the petition actually says, and that is that masks should be optional. I just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Ms. Kearney. Madam Vice Chairperson, are there any other comments?
Don't see any, no.
Okay, well then moving on to the next agenda item is, as always, our superintendent's report. So we will turn the meeting over, as we always do, to our superintendent of schools, Dr. Patrick Sullivan.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And I guess you can see me a little bit now and hopefully you can hear me. Oh, there we are. Okay. I pressed the button and things seem to improve. Maybe I'm learning on the fly here. I do apologize for that technical snafu. This is our maiden voyage with this, but I think it adds a lot of potential for future meetings and future participation virtually and in person. So I just wanted to mention a couple of factors. I did tell the community at the last meeting that I would be keeping you up to date on where the Board of Health was, although I'm sure many of you tuned in to the Board of Health meeting, and the Board of Health did approve the proposed policy amendments, I guess I would say, because the Evcfa policy will be amended with the information that we came up with. In terms of what Mr. Jeffers brought up, and I also had spoken about at the beginning of my presentation on Monday, feels like 2 weeks ago for some reason, but it was just days ago. We certainly will be reviewing everything. Of course, we have a vote from the school committee on the operational considerations. I have bargaining obligations to fulfill with that, which I'll be doing shortly. And we will implement what's appropriate based on those conversations and the conversation and vote for the committee. And then we'll come back in 6 weeks. Now, the convenient time to come back for us with a school committee meeting would be October 6th. So that's what I'm going to propose, is that we come back October 6th, as we have done throughout the pandemic. When we've implemented something, we've done it with the mind that we need to really look and see if it's effective, if it's working, if there's something we can add to it. And we'll really look at that from a masking standpoint and also from an operational standpoint to see where we are. Having said that, if conditions require us to come back and talk about things earlier, I know the school committee would want that, and I certainly will advocate for that from my end operationally and with my principals as well. So just know that we're making the best decisions with the information we have now. As you all know, they're difficult, but also know that no one's putting up blinders here at all, ever. We're listening, and we're going to be careful and thorough, and always considering the safety of everyone and the learning experience of everyone. So that's really it.
Just to make things more difficult for you, Dr. Sullivan, you think that it's been going pretty well over there for about 10 minutes. Do you have the ability to share anything on your screen?
Yes. What would you like
I
to
just emailed you a copy of the order that the Board of Health had approved last night, and I think it may be helpful just to share that with the audience.
So if perhaps you could filibuster a bit while I do that. That would be great.
Chairman McClellan, can you also send that to me, and I'll put it up with the meeting update when I post it?
I will definitely.
That's appropriate. It's appropriate for Board of Health update up to. That's fine, right?
Of course. I'll do that right now. It's coming to you right now.
So I believe the Board of Health order is up on the screen. Mrs. Cleary, is that correct?
It is.
Yeah. So as I announced to our audience, which is made of our principals, but we can't, right now you can't see it if you look over there. Excellent. Okay. Learning something every moment here. I'm sure it's very frustrating at home, but it's very enlightening from a perspective. So the Board of Public Health order is up on the screen. I'll because I'm closest to it, I'll read it. So this group can see it if you have really good eyes over there, but I will read it. So all persons, this is the Board of Health order, all persons over the age of 2 who are not vaccinated, including visitors and employees, must wear a facial mask covering his or her nose and mouth inside all municipal buildings in the town of Cohasset, except those who cannot do so due to medical conditions. The Cohasset School Department mask face covering policy, as adopted by the school committee on the 16th of August, 2021, is endorsed by the Cohasset Board of Public Health as compliant with this order. Other town department heads may, for the purposes of supporting their specific operational needs, modify this order in consultation with the town health director. This order will remain in effect until A, both Plymouth and Norfolk counties are no longer classified as high or substantial COVID-19 transmission by the State Department of Public Health. And 2, the town of Cohasset is classified in the green category with fewer than or equal to 15 cases over the previous 14 days. The status of this order will be reviewed at least monthly at a Board of Public Health meeting. So that is where the Board of Health order stands. And as you can see, it's absolutely endorses what we decided at our last meeting, a special meeting, as being compliant. Go ahead. So anything else, Chair McClellan? I don't really have anything else to share.
Perfect.
From that view, but
Perfect.
encouraged to work with my team to get all these things in place, make sure that we provide that safety and appropriate and excellent learning experience.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. I just figured it would be helpful to share.
No, I
what just
appreciate
happened
that.
last night.
Yep.
And we've had the benefit of being here every other day, so we got that going for us.
We got kicked off of Facebook, so
Oh, no.
we're trying to come back on Facebook.
Oh,
It's okay.
when did we lose Facebook?
You
Mine
don't
says
know.
live on Facebook.
That's it right there. It's live on.
Oh,
Cohasset one.
can you see anything on Facebook? Anybody have the ability to go to Facebook? This is all wondrous to me.
I mean,
Yeah, I
can
saw
go.
it.
I can go.
How I type my minutes.
Facebook could be live on.
Facebook, it's like a different thing.
Okay.
For my face.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm sorry, I probably messed it up. You know what, Cheryl, it's probably on your plan, so go on to.
Yes, that's where it is.
That's it. It's the 18th.
Sorry, everyone. This is really messy. We're doing the best we can, and it's just new. And
It's gonna be great.
It'll get smoother and smoother as time goes on. But we didn't want to just shift to in person and lose everyone that was watching from home. So
Actually, if you could.
Yeah, this is a great
What a
tool.
learning opportunity.
Well, this is also, I think, an excellent tool for educators. I think we're going to look at having.
Yes.
Here,
we didn't lose everyone that was watching from home. So
Actually, if you could.
So, but anyway, I don't know.
What
if
a
you
learning opportunity.
Well, this is also, I think, an excellent tool for educators. I think we're going to look at having.
Yes.
Here.
everyone that was watching from home. So
Where's Michael J. DeLorean? I can fix this. I can fix this.
You can fix it?
Yeah.
Go get me.
All right, we're fixed. You're
I
all
just
set.
found it on Facebook and it's there.
It is on Facebook.
Seems
Right.
like my image is on.
We had another.
that was pretty cool. All right, so let's move forward.
We will
What's,
move forward, Mr. McClellan.
So where are we?
So on the agenda right now, we move to our superintendent's report, which is still me, I guess. I'm sorry, I'm a little shaken. So moving to the superintendent's report proper, we are lucky to have our principals here with us today to witness
We
all.
sure
this.
are.
Yeah. I'm sure somewhere deep inside them, this might be entertaining. But I'm really, obviously always pleased when they're able to be here. They're really the heart of so much work we do here. And today, because of our strategic plan, we waited on a few things to get them settled. And one of them is the handbooks. So our principals had sent over handbooks in full to the school committee. So they had a chance to all review that. And they have memos attached to each of their handbooks. And what they're going to do today is review those changes. And I know Chair McClellan, what I had requested is I realize that there might be some real substantive handbook issues that the committee might want to discuss. But if they're just, I shouldn't say just, but if they're editorial comments about a sentence that isn't properly constructed or something that might seem awkward within the document, all I'd ask is that you share that on an email with the principals just to save time and just to be efficient. With that, what we're going to do is I'm going to try to share on the screen that memo so the home can see everything that is being changed in the handbook. And we'll start with lucky Principal Scott, who's the first one to go here. And he'll go over the memo, which I will put on Zoom and Facebook, but Principal Scott won't necessarily see it, although if he looks over there, he might be able to. And we'll go through the changes and get the endorsement at the end.
Awesome. Madam Vice Chairperson, can you please monitor the comments in case anyone has any questions regarding the handbooks as we go through? Uh-oh.
Yes, I will. Sorry, I muted myself. I forgot. I muted my camera because when I
Don't do that again. You got me worried.
giant image of me and it was unsettling. So I just turning my camera off until I have to say something. But I will let you know if I see any questions.
Mrs. Clear, can you see on the screen the memo? Wonderful. So Principal Scott, maybe begin.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. I'll do my best to speak.
Can you hear Principal Scott?
I can, yes.
Okay.
So as you can see from the memo, as Dr. Sullivan mentioned, we kind of held off as long as we could, anticipating that there were going to be some changes coming from DESI that might impact us operationally, which of course last year did. So there are no real major changes for two reasons. One, the aforementioned, and two, we didn't really think that we needed any. What we did a lot of in the district is streamline a lot of our handbooks so that they align with each other. So a lot of what I say will be a little bit redundant from the other three schools. And those were around legal updates. They were around redundancies. So things that appear in our program of studies, which is approved in January, were sometimes repeated, cut and paste. We didn't think we needed that. Same thing with things that were under the school committee policy purview were also included in handbooks, partly just as they build up over time. And so we kind of stripped those all out. And then as we do every year, we amended some language for clarity. We had some pronoun language that was in kind of not an outdated section, but an older section that we changed to make gender neutral. We had some links to the district calendar and some minor changes there. And we, of course, replaced our core values with new district mission, core beliefs, and visions in the new strategic plan. The biggest change for the high school, and really the only substantive change, is that we amended our schedule to include a daily utility, or some schools call it an advisory period. We had looked at that before the pandemic started. We'd always run it once a week. We got a lot of feedback from students. We put a faculty committee together to investigate whether this would be better served, taking our 88-minute blocks, cutting them down to 80, and taking that, what ends up being about 35, 38 minutes, and putting that into a daily block where we could use that for tiered support primarily, and then potentially for some other things down the road. So, that does a few things for us, especially with the impetus at the time was the move to the later start, knowing that kids play sports. We have competitors that don't necessarily have field lights, so their ability to stay after, their inability potentially or undesirability to come in before school, building that kind of support period during the day can really help us. Number one, push kids into where we think they need to be. And number two, allow for them not just a little bit of a mental break, because we don't have study periods, we don't have downtime. Our kids are fully scheduled, but just to kind of collect themselves, organize themselves, work in that executive function. What we found over the pandemic was we did this and we were able to set up a couple of specific executive function groups for some of the kids who needed the most help. And it was a lifesaver for a lot of them. Their attendance was better, their output was better, the communication with teachers was better, and Ms. Stromberg and Ms. Batista met with them every day, even when we weren't all fully, some kids were, and it was really kind of a game changer. So we can do that, for our neediest population. It should help, all of our students, which is kind of the idea of tiered support. So those are really that was really the biggest change.
Thank you, Principal Scott. And if the committee has any questions for Principal Scott, as you probably see from looking at the handbooks, if you weren't familiar with them, we've done a lot to make them more standardized in certain areas, particularly in terms of referencing policies. We're still working on that, and this will all be tied into our district handbook, which we weren't quite ready to present at this meeting, but we'll look to do that in the first September meeting. Any questions for Principal Scott?
Mrs. Cleary, do you have any questions?
Not Principal Scott.
Mr. Dial, do you have any questions?
Just a quick question for students during that utility period who aren't engaged with any sort of extra help. Is it just a free period for them where they can,
No, this counts time on learning. So one of the things that we're still in the midst of implementing is a piece of software from a company called Reaching Students. And it's a basic scheduling software. So what it's going to allow is, first of all, we have 2 teachers in each utility. So we have 20 kids report to a classroom. Teacher takes attendance, and then this software is going to allow me as the utility teacher to push kids in. I can see your grades are a little bit lower in English. I'm going to put you in there on Monday. Or it allows me as a subject matter teacher to request kids in. So I know who I want to see. I want to run a small group session. I'm going to pull you 4 or 5 kids in on Thursday. Where it was once a week, it was a little bit more loose. Every day that doesn't quite work. It worked on Thursdays. The kids really enjoyed it. And they would do a multitude of things. This is going to be a little bit more restrictive, and it's going to allow us to show parents, either he had 3 days of extra help here, it didn't quite work, we're escalating the intervention, or we scheduled him in 3 times, he refused to go. That's a different conversation that we want to try to figure out why that is. It's also going to allow for guidance conversations to happen around scheduling, around college placement, because kids will be in different areas depending on the time of year. When the fall hits, the seniors typically need less academic support up front, but they're all in the college grind, or most of them in the college grind. So, that time to meet with counselors, to meet with college reps, to get their essays done, to make sure that their applications are, correctly navigated, especially the kids who may not have the support at home. That'll be a good piece for them. So they're going to have a little bit more latitude. The freshmen just want to know how this thing works. We'll do a little bit more SEL stuff with them, get to know them. Have you found out who the soccer coach is? Are you plugged in? Building those kind of connections. We're going to do some programmatic stuff around, there's an SEL survey that we're going to give. There's a new relationship with Mass General Hospital. It's going to be kind of pushed out through that. So it'll be a lot of information gathering in the beginning. And then once October hits and, we're halfway through the quarter, kids are going to want to be in classrooms. And they've all been very productive. Even the study groups that used to happen are typically like AP US History, group of 5 people working together. So, if that changes, we'll change the model, but, that's the goal.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Mr. Kearney, any questions? Principal Scott?
No, it's great. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Mrs. St. Ange?
I think it's a great update. I think including that throughout the year is awesome. Developing students to listen through senior year is so important. We'll prep kids for life. Quick question, more to follow Mr. Dial, I'm just curious. When kids are requested, some certain teacher wants to see them, does that populate for them somewhere prior to utility period, or do they find out when they get there?
Right. So what the plan is we'll sit down with them utility on Monday. We'll schedule them out for a week with them in the room. So that'll be kind of Monday's utility until we get used to it.
Yeah, for sure.
We still need to roll out the software to the faculty. So it might even take a few weeks depending on where we're at with that. But then the kids will get an email. The parents can get an email to say, here's the student schedule for the week.
Great.
That should generate, if not a paper trail, a conversation. And it should allow us just a better level of communication with, the C+ shouldn't be a surprise because of, updating grades and requesting them to come in. The thing with high school kids is you can't always force them to do anything. But providing the structures and the opportunity and the time, most kids take it.
Yeah.
So that's
A great, students, parents, and people are being let on them, so it could be
Yeah.
very productive use of that. That's
ideally, students will push themselves into places. We're not going to be there anytime soon.
great.
We'll see how it goes with teachers calling kids in, but I think once it gets going, you can see the benefit of it.
Yeah, we build momentum. It sounds terrific. Can you please hold on?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Principal Scott. That was great. I mean, I think we're ever improving these things.
Yeah.
And we now have, as you'll see, pretty similar formatting with the middle school and high school, and then the 2 elementary schools, which is really nice. The ability is great, organization is great. And, I think as you're reading through this, I mean, it seems excellent and comprehensive, but, as some specific situation becomes more applicable throughout the year, that's when these things tend to evolve, right? We make note of that. So, but, I think we're doing the best we can. It seems like a great document. So thanks. It takes a lot of time to put these things together. So thanks.
Yeah, and you're right, the person who lets 100 squirrels in the lobby, that wasn't the intent. You're not supposed to do that. So you do
Now-
build in some latitude to play.
For the record, no squirrels have been.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here, Principal Scott. Thank you.
Okay, so next, just to go in order, I would call Principal Mills from middle school. Welcome, Principal Mills.
Thanks for having me. And we're looking at page 1 of my memo.
No, but you will.
So, yeah, so just as far as introduction, I mean, each of the buildings is similar but different. And as you know, the middle school, we're going into a third year as a distinct school all by itself and different than the high school. Our handbook originally began as the handbook for the middle high school. And 3 years ago, we separated. And of course, last year, we didn't put as much work into it as we did just dealing with hybrid learning and remote learning. So as we enter this year, some of the work we did was similar to Principal Scott's comments about making sure that our language and our formatting is consistent between the schools, that we reflect school committee policy and the district student handbook. Beyond that, the middle school is a little bit more, it's a little unique in that we also want to make sure that our handbook reflects what we do, because originally it started out as a different school's handbook, essentially. So we want to make sure that operationally and culturally it represents who we are. And then lastly, we want to make sure it's usable and useful for our parents, so that we kind of foster some closer relationship with our parents. So the changes for this year are around that. As you can imagine, things like telephone numbers and names get updated. We included the district's core mission. General school information, we included a section with our entire faculty and their emails, so that it's easier for teachers to simply click on a link and be able to communicate with the teacher. Just like Principal Scott had said, we've had to update our schedules around, for us, it's returning to this a schedule similar to what we had the year before last, the year before hybrid and remote. Now I'm on to page 2 of the memo. We have a section that's dedicated to academic standards and procedures. And once again, this was about updating and making sure we reflected who we are as a school, and also what was found in the program of studies that was approved by the school committee last February. So a lot of those changes were just a matter of including that language that hadn't previously been in our handbook. Behavioral expectations and procedures, same thing. We wanted to make sure we reflected our school culture, so that we inserted text around our guiding principles and our rationale for behavioral expectations. There was, and I'm on to page 3, a skipper table that was meant to outline or highlight positive behavior, but unfortunately it had become outdated because it's several years old. It talked about things like cell phone use being allowed in the cafeteria, but we don't. Our kids don't use cell phones, and instead at lunch they eat lunch and they interact, and so it's truly a tech-free zone. We were lacking a section around proper tech use, and in that, by including that, we really became consistent with district student policies, district student handbook, as well as Deer Hill. And then we removed some other language that it just didn't represent who we are. Moving on towards the bottom of page 3 on 4, we updated the attendance. Culturally, we included a statement about the importance of attendance that comes out of school committee policy, as well as some definitions around excusable absences. along with the high school, we revisited our makeup work policy to make sure that it was flexible, that it would apply to, unique situations and become really, I guess, promote shared responsibility among faculty by including administrators, school counselors, in the collaborating with families and students and teachers when students are out and they have to make up work. Towards the bottom of section 4, we updated the school counseling section. At this time, really in middle schools, we don't really use the phrase guidance counselor anymore, which is, typically the guidance counselor helps kids choose a path beyond high school, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the job of a middle school counselor. So school counselor is the accepted vernacular. So we updated it and operationally updated the way our counseling department works. And then lastly, page 5, same thing, our health clinic section didn't really represent who we are. It described the physician. It also had antiquated gender usage where the nurse was described in female pronouns and the physician was only referred to as male pronouns. So we updated all of that and included an allergy section that makes us consistent with Deer Hill's handbook and once again, I think provides information that our families need. So like I said, the changes were about making sure we're consistent and really provide our parents and our students with a document that reflects who we are and what they can expect from the school.
Thank you, Principal Mills. Any questions, Mrs. Cleary?
Thank you very much, Principal Mills. You know, I love a good pronoun correction. I know we got a couple of copies of yours. I think we got an updated version right before the meeting. And I just noticed that the non-discrimination clause that we adopted maybe I was looking at the wrong version that we got, but I didn't see it in this handbook. It's like on the first page, I think, in a box.
The handbook, right now, it's on page 5. It's right after our table of contents, which I think we located it there to be consistent with high school. So I apologize if you're referring to like an older, an earlier version.
But we updated the non-discrimination clause, and it was in the high school handbook, but I think this is an old non-discrimination clause. Does anyone else see it?
Yeah, on page 5, the non-discrimination clause included is, I believe, our older version.
Oh,
I think
okay.
you're correct.
All right, thank you
So
for pointing that out.
Yeah.
Or a revised version of that. You could replace that before it goes on the website. I think that would be.
That's precisely what we're here. So that's great.
Good catch.
Thank you, Mrs. Cleary. Mr. Dowd?
No questions from me. It sounds like a lot of work.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Apologies. I was still looking at the non-discrimination clause. Mr. Tierney, any questions for Principal Mills?
No, just great presentation. It's nice to see it all come together. Again, it's our 3rd year here, and to have such a well-written handbook is impressive. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tierney. Ms. St. Ange?
I guess no questions, just compliments. Just so nice to see defining the culture of the school and really making its own entity. And I also love the emphasis on communication and makeup work. Their kids are beginning to become so much more independent, but having that support system built into communication is really excellent and stops that feeling of paralysis when you have too much work to do. So it's just a great approach. Thank you for all that hard work.
Thank you, Ms. St. Ange. Yes, thanks very much, Principal Mills. You have, I echo your sentiments. It's such an important thing to recognize. You have done an amazing job creating that, individual entity that is CMS now. That was, I know, a major part of your charge when you came on board, and you're so successful in it. I continue to love that letterhead you developed, and you're just a great middle school educator, early teen educator, and you're really good at it. It's a difficult age group, I think, to truly understand. There's a lot of changes. There's a lot of, I think, social emotional issues in that age group. So, and you're just doing a phenomenal job. I love with the handbook, this is regard to the handbook, I love the behavioral expectations and procedures inserted language that you put in. I found that to be pretty positive and well articulated. So
It just allows us to deal with different
Sure.
situations uniquely for each set of circumstances,
sure.
and that's important.
Yeah, and I think it puts the emphasis on the students a little bit more at that developmental age where, they're sort of learning, okay, so this isn't like just being told, it's like sort of my responsibility to sort of approach things this way. So, again, very demonstrative of, I think, your mastery of that age group. So thank you.
That's great. Well, thank you, Mr. Mills, for all your work and your team's work. And now, without further ado, I have Principal Sullivan from the Deer Hill School come on up. Share your document.
Hello. So third in line, definitely, as we're saying, we have one of the highlights of this process this year was the collaboration that we had among the schools. And so I think that's reflected in the changes that we made. Deer Hill did a significant revamping of our handbook during the 2018-19 school year. And so our changes also were more about alignment, consistency, streamlining, things like that, updating legal disclosures and such. Again, the new vision, district mission, core values, making sure our hyperlinks are accurate, those kinds of things. We also, I just did a little bit of organization and making sure that the flow worked well and aligned with the other schools, updated the table of contents. I love good hyperlink. And so when you can make that table of contents click and then you can make the subheadings click, that's like magic. So that was a little activity there and a little side road. And then just really, to provide easier access. In terms of changes to expectations and things like that, one area was that we added expectations around toys, fidgets, and gum. Lydia is shaking her head as a member of the liaison on my school council. She was definitely a part of this conversation. And really that just supplements our previously established expectations around electronic devices. Our last handbook just focused on that and our away for the day policy and our expectation that students do not have cell phones in school. This is now a public service announcement. They do not have cell phones in school. They do not have Apple Watches at school. If they have those things, they are away for the day. For our age group, when parents are texting their students, it actually poses a safety issue because students will just show up at the office and say, my mom texted, she's picking me up early. So anyway. So I digress. So we did supplement that now to add language around fidgets, toys, and gum. Toys follow along the lines of the away for the day policy, where they really don't have a place at school. If for some reason there's a play date after school or some reason that toy needs to come into our building, then it stays in the backpack and doesn't make an appearance. Fidgets and gum are a little more nuanced. Those actually do have some learning uses. And so what the language that we wanted to articulate in the handbook is that idea that that's driven by the school and the teacher. So a teacher might say or identify that a student, maybe formally through a 504 or some other kind of vehicle, or informally that a student benefits from chewing gum during a test or at another time. And so we wanted to have that latitude, but it's not a classmate bringing 6 packs of Big League Chew and sharing it every session in the hall. So there definitely is a distinction there. And same with fidgets. Our adjustment counselors, Mrs. Dolan and Mrs. Costa, have a great supply of fidgets and things like that. So again, we encourage those to come through the school, but if an agreement is reached by a classroom teacher and adjustment counselor that is a learning tool or either to support academic or social emotional learning, then that's something we can work with. We also added a brief statement just around curriculum in our handbook. It wasn't directly addressed. And it, again, very brief, and it really just links to the DESE website, 2 places, both to our standards, which are really the roadmap for teachers, and then DESE does have a beautiful family-friendly guide to the standards, and so we wanted to link there as well. And that really just underscores previous, not this most recent handbook, but years ago, the handbook would list some of our curricular programs, such as empowering writers or reading streak and things like that. And I think that speaks to a tool not a curriculum. And so by linking to the standards, by linking to those pieces, it really underscores that idea that we are standards-based, that we use resources to develop, that teachers have that autonomy and have that professionalism to develop their curriculum using a variety of resources with DESE's frameworks as their guide. And so that was a very small blurb, but to me it was very pointed that it was included in that way in the handbook. And that's it.
Thank you, Principal Sullivan. Mrs. Clary, do you have any questions or comments about the Deer Hill Handbook for Principal Sullivan?
I just want to say that I really appreciate that there is a place for nuance in I'll say equipment, for lack of a better term, that students are able to bring to school and use in school. I feel like that demonstrates a real commitment to sort of meeting kids where they're at and understanding that we're not a one size fits all place. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cleary. Mr. Dial.
No questions. Seems like a very thoughtful and complete handbook, so we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Mr. Kearney, any questions or comments for Principal Sullivan?
No questions, just a comment. It looks great. It's a great presentation, and thank you.
Mr. Kearney, Mrs. St. Ange.
I'd like to share your joy about hyperlinks. Really fun to really start doing. I'm going to learn so much about myself relative to hyperlinks this year. I also must compliment your safe snacks visual. As a parent shopping for snacks that we need to know kids to eat in school. I have to give credit to the nurses for that. Yes, I remember we did push that out, and I thought, oh, we could just drop that right in there. So helpful to have. And I just echo having been a part of that conversation. It's just so nice to know at all of our schools that kids are being seen on an individual basis, and we are recognizing what is going to work for them as a tool and help them to be the best one that they can be. So it's just great to have it. Excellent. Thank you. And I was sharing Mrs. St. Ange today, our little conversation about spaces after periods. So I did go through and Dr. Sullivan was sharing that he too is a convert to one space after the period instead of two. I know it's, we could take this till midnight. The chat feature just starts blowing up.
Stop.
I know.
Don't get her rolling on the Oxford
Change for me, but the problem was I was inconsistent because I was trying to, you know, update my. It's a transitional thing, so my apologies.
One and a half space.
Yes.
Everybody loves that.
There you go. So it's still a work in progress. Now, I know now folks at home are going to be counted looking. Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. St. Ange. Principal Sullivan, thanks so much. Unsurprisingly, the organization is wonderful, and it's got great readability. And the one thing about the Osgood, as we'll see in a second, and Deer Hill, they're very similar, so that's good. I like that because you're transitioning to the school, you're still young. But with this, especially when you get to like the social awareness part and the like the disciplinary section, it is certainly, not just for the age group, but in the school itself, but it's a more simplistic version than like the later years in middle school and high school. But that's important for a few reasons. Not only because you tend to have, fewer, more complex disciplinary issues at that age level, but in the Deer Hill School in particular, towards the end of that school, especially, the students themselves will be able to refer to that and an easily comprehensible format for them to really digest and sort of take responsibility themselves for like, oh, is my conduct, in compliance with what's expected of me? So I do like that, and it stands out. So and this was, as you noted, I mean, I think that the Deer Hill handbook was fairly strong when we made we didn't do it, you did, made those initial changes for, I think it was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So anyway, thanks. It looks great, and as always, and unsurprisingly well organized. So
to speak to your point about students taking responsibility, we do that all the way through. We have a document. If a student does find their way in my office, or and actually what classroom teachers use it too, we do have a behavior reflection, and we anchor it with the super creed, and they do have an opportunity to write about, what was the incident, what were the antecedent, what led up to it and what were the ramifications of that, what are the consequences and how did that play out? And then they get to take that home and have a conversation. So it really does help them take ownership of that behavior as we transition from the Osgood to middle and high school. So that's a piece of that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Principal Sullivan. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our school councils, because it really is the school councils who work very closely with the principals to formulate handbooks, and later in the fall, you'll see the school improvement plans, which takes a lot of work. School councils are typically, well, they have to be equal representation for families and level, and then on the other side, teachers and administrators. So it's an equal balance, working through matters that involve budget, particularly when it comes to class sizes. And then also the two other big blocks for them are the school improvement plans, which you'll see in the fall, and of course, our handbook. So thank you to everyone who's involved with that. And also thank you to the school committee who sits on those groups as well. I know you've done great guidance with that. So with that, I get to invite Principal Farrell from Joseph Osgood School to come up and talk about her handbook and who'll work with her council. And I will share that document now.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here this evening. I wanted to first start by saying obviously much of what's in the Osgood handbook came from the middle and high school in Daniel. We trickled down and made sure that the families new to the district, obviously most of them, 90% of them started the Osgood, so making the handbook user-friendly, trying to alleviate any stress. Even when I looked at the fact that we looked at more clarity in regards to codes of conduct. If you have a parent of a 5-year-old and you hear somebody say codes of conduct, it's a little stressful.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to make it a little bit more user-friendly for the families and the students at our level. As I go through this, I could turn to Mr. Mills, Mr. Scott, and Mr. Soap and just say ditto, ditto, ditto. As you can see, one of the items that was really important for us this time was to streamline and to align everything. I'm going to just cut right to the items that are more linked to the Osgood. And as Mrs. Sullivan was saying, the personal items and the toys and the items in school, our biggest battle at the Osgood when it comes to toys is not that they're a distraction, but they are shared with each other before recess, at recess, and then they want them back after recess. I will tell you, if you think that Pokemon cards are no longer in existence, they definitely are.
We can only wish.
Yes. So when it does come to personal items and toys, that is mentioned mainly because it's not necessarily, it's always a distraction, but it causes heartbreak. I write back to this person, all of a sudden I'm standing there, it's just standing there, trying to get back a Pokemon card, which really doesn't go very well at all. So it is for, and it's an opportunity for the students to realize that there are tools that you use at school and there are tools that you use at home. And bargaining doesn't always happen the best way that they think it would be. The other items that were mentioned, as I said, was the Clarion Code of Conduct. One of the items that's really difficult at the early elementary grades is if a child does something that's not expected, what happens? Does a parent get a phone call right away? Is a parent notified right away? It should be more of a learning experience when the child makes a choice that isn't favorable. And just trying, as Mrs. Sullivan said, trying to work through that. Draw me a picture. What did you think was going to happen? Or what did you need for the outcome to be? So when I say codes of conduct, it's just, we do certain things, we don't push, we don't shove, we don't put our hands on each other. And what does it look like if we did do that? It's not automatically a phone call home. And it's all relevant to the situation itself. A push and a shove are two different things, but we will look at each case individually. Especially when you look at 5-year-olds, they're just learning how to be in the mix of other young people that aren't siblings. You can push your sibling at home, you can't push somebody at school. So it's just kind of getting them to the point where they're understanding what the rules or the guidelines are at school. And as Mrs. St. Ange said, it was very nice to have the guideline from the nurses, the pictures, when you go shopping, you can buy this, you shouldn't buy that. the biggest item for snacks, and I know this year, even with the pandemic, it was difficult for people to realize, well, why do we have to send in this particular snack? There's maybe not a child in the classroom that has an allergy. It makes things so much easier if everybody has the same brand of snack or is eating the same type of situation. In the past, it's a big change for the Osgood with the snacks, because in the past, the nurse would go room to room and check all the snacks every morning. And obviously, our nurses don't ever have time for that, but in the last year and a half, year and a half, they haven't had that time at all. So we've been maintaining that. Snacks will not be checked because it will be the snacks that were sent. So that was a huge piece. And the other for the Osgood was we included the motto of be safe, be respectful, be responsible. But putting that into our handbook with also the mindset that we've had probably for the last 3 years is it's who we are and what we do. We're kind because it's who we are and what we do. We pick up our items. We cooperate because it's who we are and what we do. So that is throughout the handbook. The other 2 items that I did want to mention was I'd like to thank Dr. Scollins, Mr. Mills, Mr. Scott, and Mrs. Sullivan for the collegiality, and Dr. Scollins for leading us during this handbook revision. We met several times for a lot of discussions, and you get a veteran that's been here for a while. You get people, our experiences are varied. And to have us all on the same page is something that I haven't seen here in the handbook, so I would like to publicly thank Dr. Scollins for the leadership in that. And my colleagues who share very freely, it makes things a lot easier. So I think that was Osgood in a snapshot.
Thank you, Principal Farrell. Mrs. Cleary, do you have any, actually, Mrs. Cleary, can you check you do a check, you might have been checking the Q&A to make sure no one's asking questions about these handbooks? And then ask.
No questions. There are no questions in the Q&A. So I didn't thank Principal Sullivan. I love the new pictures on the covers of the handbooks. I think they're phenomenal. Love them. I think Mrs. Farrell, I think you have the same non-discrimination for statement that Mr. Mills had. So I just want to make sure we all have the same non-discrimination statement in our handbooks, but otherwise it looks fabulous. I think and that last thing that you said made me so happy. I love hearing that we have a really cohesive, collaborative leadership team in our district, and I feel really fortunate for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cleary. Mr. Donow?
So I want to echo that as well. I don't know much, I'll be honest, about handbooks and moving. But I do know a little bit about organizations and to consistently hear the cooperation, collaboration with the principals, with the superintendents. It shows that our schools are in great and capable hands. And I just want to echo my happiness about that and to continue to encourage sharing across the schools and it creates a consistent environment for the kids and for the parents, which is really, really helpful. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Mr. Kearney, you have any questions or comments for Principal Farrell regarding the Joseph Osgood School handbook?
Well, it was just nice to hear the team process, and I appreciate all the principals. I think they did a wonderful job, and to know that they're all working together is music to our ears.
Thank you for that, Mr. Kearney. Mrs. St. Ange?
Yes, I echo everyone's compliments. On page 16, now it's like embarrassing how many times I brought up snacks in the last 2
Yes,
days.
no, I saw that, yes.
Deerville.
And we also, we have what we
Right.
want when we want it, but the Deerfield.
Yeah, here's the kids at Deerville,
Yeah.
no snack for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just obviously switch
Yes.
that to Osgood. Other than that, it looks terrific. The problem-solving approach with kids is great. We've experienced it ourselves. It's so nice to just have the kids be a part of what's going on and to learn, and they're certainly doing it. They're in loving school. So
I think the big part of that is parents make a comment frequently about, oh, I'm in the principal's office. I don't know, when I was in school, I never got to go to the principal's office. Or if I did, I didn't talk about it. But the principal's office should be someplace that is labeled as, I went there because I couldn't follow the rules that you created. I usually do most of my conversations with students that are having a difficult time on the big stairs.
Right.
Just because I don't want the negativity to be related to the position of the space. And it's just a good conversation with the students.
And much to all of your credit, I think that that shift in attitude and culture surrounding the principal and principal's office is happening here. You know, I they're just like to see out in the world, at school, on big stairs, classroom, very confident people.
I love we can mention the big stairs.
Yes.
Some very PV plans. Very good.
Thank you so much, Principal Farrell. Similar to Principal Sullivan's handbook, and I love that they're both so close in organization, in formatting. But it's also, again, it's really, it's simplified, it's easy to understand, it's easy to reference for parents, especially help me transition to my next topic, but for especially for newer parents that are having kids in school. And along those lines, one of the reasons you're such a strong principal, in my personal opinion, is because of your accessibility and responsiveness. You have a lot, I'll speak, anxious and nervous parents, that aren't familiar with the public school system. I just sent my first child through your school. She's all, but so I benefited from seeing her from K through 2 under your tutelage, and you have a really calming presence for parents that are new to this process, and you're really accessible. So one thing that I was thinking, and I don't know if you incorporated this year, it's not something that's like, I don't know that's that urgent, but maybe you do say at the end of your letter, like, hey, reach out anytime, but maybe like even the section, like reminding people, like, we understand that this is a new process. There may be many questions. I am very accessible. You are. It's one of your major strengths. That and you're always boots on the ground everywhere in your school. Whenever I'm there, like wherever the epicenter of activity is, you're there to make sure everything's going well, which is like a huge strength for a K-2 principal because the kids are little and you want to make sure that everyone's accounted for at all times. But you also need to manage new parents, like I was, a few years ago, in terms of public schools, not new in terms of newborns, but so something like that, just to like, even though it says it in your letter, just to announce to people, like, we understand this, I'm here, please reach out, like a separate, little section. And then when it comes to the arrival and dismissal section, it may be, and again, these are suggestions, Principal Farrell. I mean, you run the operations of your school well, so it's just something I'm thinking about, right? I'm wondering if, like, with these things about, like, bus riders or car pickups or walkers, like, if, like, especially with car pickups and walkers, maybe it says, like, students who be picked up by car must be dismissed at the front door of the office, students will be dismissed supervising staff as cars pull forward. It is, as we all know, readily apparent how the pickup is going once you get there.
Right.
But if you haven't done it a few times, it might be nice to see these details and, like, know, especially if maybe you're usually a bus rider, but it's a kindergartner, and then all of a sudden you have to pick up on, with no one else, with no prior knowledge, and you're like, oh, I have to go, and mom's rushing home from work or dad's rushing home from work to get the kid, and they're like, well, where do I go? It might be nice if they just saw this at some point. And the same thing with the walkers. Again, it's probably, very, very apparent once you're there, but dismissed to the side doors of the school, like maybe like, okay, by the cafe, that's indoors though. So if you're not familiar with the school, so maybe like, the doors facing the playground or something like that. And people know exactly where to go. I don't know. When I was reading that, I was like, I'm just trying to think of things, right?
Right.
So I don't know. Consider that, I guess, for future or something like that. If you think it's necessary. I know.
Yeah, the traffic flow map.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It's like
Yeah.
Mr. Mom, and you're doing it
Right.
wrong. No, it's okay, just go do it. So, traffic flow is always so.
That's a really good idea, actually, Matt. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah. It's an awesome idea. So, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farrell. And it's great to have such a wonderful principal with such wonderful principals. But I'm speaking of Principal Farrell, that the first induction to school is to meet Mrs. Farrell. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
She set such a wonderful atmosphere.
I remember being clapped at my kindergarten orientation. Quiet down.
Yeah, right. So anyway, thank you all. I'll let the principal see you in the morning, but thank you for enduring all the trials here and doing wonderful presentations.
It was good to see you.
Thank you.
Maybe this summer.
I don't know.
Sure.
I thought we were in person. I feel like we're in Oz.
It is a different feeling, isn't it? It's
is,
interesting.
good.
So
Right.
that actually, do you have anything to add at all to the superintendent's report? And I do want to echo the thanks of Dr. Scollins for working collaboratively with that team. She did a great job just making sure, you probably can see more consistency across the handbook. You've been here for a couple of years, and that has a lot to do with Dr. Scollins, so thank you. But do you want to add anything about anything?
Where to begin? No, but I do. Did an amazing job.
Sorry to interrupt. I can't hear again.
Oh,
Is it me? Dear. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Now I can't hear you.
oh boy.
It's the
No.
angle thing. Gotta come closer.
This is comical at best. Because I have, I have
Yeah,
kids.
we've learned, you know what, though? The next time it'll be much smoother because we do have a good sense now for a couple things. One is that you can't be too close to the microphone or it doesn't pick you up. And if people are noticing at home, I'm starting to get a little better at the camera.
You're getting very good at the camera, Dr. Sullivan. I do,
Okay.
know.
It's really kind of a fun tool.
Keeping up.
But I'll get better. We'll get better.
All right, let's see if you can
All
hear
right,
Dr.
is
Scollins
that
now.
better now?
Yes.
Great. And
Now I can't hear you. Sorry.
Oh.
Don't- I'm sorry.
Can you
Want to
hear me?
move over to
Can
Ashley's, Jim?
can you hear?
Don't. I'm kidding.
It's the first time we've ever met in this room, so.
Is that going to impact you, Jason?
No.
Okay.
All right, how about actually, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So what I was going to share with them next Thursday, the 26th, and then the following Monday and Tuesday, the 30th and the 31st, we have our new teacher induction program. And we have at this point 10 new teachers that will come and join us, and their mentors will also meet with us at some point. But it's our introduction to the new staff, and it's really exciting. It's joyful. They're nervous, excited, and scared. Especially if they're brand new, right out of college. But it's really a fun couple of days for me, and I really love that we welcome them in and have lots of hands that come in. And Dr. Sullivan comes in, Mrs. Serwanka, Mrs. Brad, and Mrs. Carls. Everybody comes in and greets everybody at some particular point. So I just wanted to share that I'm really excited about that, and that will be happening before school starts.
Thank you, Dr. Scollins.
All right. Dr. Sullivan, does that conclude the superintendent's report?
That concludes, of course, maybe
Can I
not.
ask a very quick
Of
question?
course.
Are all schedules and teacher information being released next week? Is that the plan?
Yeah, it is the plan. We wanted to wait to next week.
I do believe it was the 24th. I'm just gonna grab my water to my paper.
So one of the.
But it may have to. Later.
Yeah, so one of the considerations was we wanted to see what we were going to be doing with spacing. Because that has an impact on class sizes. Obviously, we're hiring a fifth grade teacher because we were endorsed to do so. That changes everything. At Deer Hill, for instance,
Yeah.
we didn't know what would happen at Osgood, because some of those class numbers were close. But we think we're okay with them. So they should be coming out in the next week. And we do.
Yeah.
I do want to apologize. One of the efforts was to get these schedules out as early as possible. In the last 2 years, and just outside factors have just kind of halted that a bit. But we want to make sure we get it right and get it safe. And so But Dr. Scoggins, do you have particular information
You know,
about?
I don't, we talked a little bit today because we just made that decision around the states and those pieces. So I would say, closer to the end of next week, so that there's that 27th-ish, that's probably a better bet.
It seems nice to have a realistic expectation.
Yeah, I mean,
Sometimes we get it in the teens.
yeah, it won't be in the teens this time at all, so it would definitely be, I would hate, I want to tell you probably late 20s this time, just because of the impact, so,
Right.
you know, so yeah, late, yeah.
It's me running to the mailbox.
Right. And then phones start ringing.
Yeah.
No, but I
everybody's
understand, I understand the question. I
Yeah.
understand the concern. You want to prepare and you want to be, you know, like everyone else does. You want to be ready for the year and get your child ready for the year and set up kind of your networks. And I we do the same thing in my house. So
Right.
it is a goal of our team moving forward to get these schedules out as quickly as we can, which will be quicker than we're getting them out this year, but we do appreciate the patience.
On the hiring of a new teacher, and I'm not used to hiring teachers, but is it seems like a 6-week window, I think pretty tight. Is that? are you able to find-
Well, we're gonna post, and we're posting until, so what we'll do in this case is, we never settle for any requests that, you know, they're the cream of the crop, as we hire them, and we're really making sure that, we go through all the processes of doing all the correct checks to make sure, so we're not gonna rush it, but we are gonna be looking at people, if we hit the jackpot right away, we'll move a little quicker. But, you know, I'm confident I know we just posted for the first grade teacher, for instance, and had, I don't know how many,
140.
140.
School spring,
So there's
within
no-
24
there's
hours,
no-
you're gonna be.
Right.
I mean,
there's-
people want to come to Cohasset, and we should not want for a fabulous teacher, which really get on fairly quickly.
And we
But I don't want to
No
give
doubt.
people the feeling we're rushing.
Yeah.
But it is in our best interest to get someone on board.
It's fertile. I mean, there's so many teachers out there, like Dr. Sullivan said, want to be Cohasset. And so we'll find someone wonderful, no doubt.
We're already on.
Exciting.
Okay. Does that do it?
I think so.
All right, let's
Okay.
move on to the finance section of the agenda. We turn the meeting to our Director of Finance and Operations, Mrs. Noy, to present our financial report.
I think this is my first live meeting.
It
It
is.
is, right?
Same.
My first live meeting. Ashley, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you a quick snapshot of the FY '22, this July finance report. There's lots of detail in the information that I put out there. I will summarize it again in memo form, because that seems to be the favorite process, which is probably my favorite too, because I just summarize it, and you can.
Your memo is on the screen. You can see it behind you, actually, just for reference.
So just to start off the year, the voting school budget for FY '22 was $21,684,432. $684,432. It represented an additional $723,576 or a 3.45% increase over FY '21. As of July 31st, we have expended about $412,356. And we've encumbered $832,335. Encumbered means this purchase orders in the system, so it's holding that money as if it's been expended. Expenses proceeding is projected. I mean, there's not a lot that goes on. There's lots of salaries that are not being paid for the summer. Obviously, lots of supplies and materials being purchased to get ready for the start of school. As I said, salaries, part of the salaries, you'll see a minimal, the salaries being paid over the summer are more or less the administrators, the central office staff, the office secretaries, the custodians, the summer school staff, the IT staff. The teachers, the paraprofessionals, the cafeteria staff, the bus drivers, and all the other support staff that work just the school year will begin their payroll in September. So at this point, there are no areas of concern, and we really don't know what the payrolls are going to look like come September. As I started to mention, supplies and materials, lots of requisitions going to the system all summer for the purchase of supplies and materials. They're being currently entered by our office secretaries and will show up as encumbered in our budget report. Once the purchase order has been processed, we wait for supplies and materials to come in, we match it up, we pay it, and then it will show as expended. So
school budget in general is projecting, moving along as projected, sorry. And then a little bit about circuit breakers. So circuit breaker, we're always a year behind. So circuit breaker funding FY '21, we received $648,533. This amount was carried over in its entirety into FY '22. This amount was based on the 75% reimbursement rate. So the money we received in FY '22 will carry into '23. So we're always a year ahead, but using the year behind, which is a good place to be. Just a quick little, for people that don't know what circuit breaker is, circuit breaker is a state program that provides school districts with reimbursements for some of the costs incurred for providing free and appropriate education to students with special needs. There's a formula that goes along with it. They take the total tuition, they have a foundation amount they subtract from it, which is usually about 40 to 42,000. And then the percentage of 35%, they take it 35% of the remaining, and they reimburse. That's just to kind of give a little background of what circuit breaker means. On page 2 of the memo, I tried to talk about capital outlay a little bit, which is some of our other funding that we use to support the system. So all our capital outlay funding for the past years have been expended, and all projects have been completed, which is really a good place to be. For FY '22, we were allotted $1.8 million, which I think is a very high amount compared to past years, which is great. We have $250,000 to replace the Deer Hill air handlers. We have $75,000 to replace the Osgood sprinkler heads that are getting old. We have $500,000 to replace the middle and the high school HVAC system. We have $500,000 to replace the turf at the middle high school. We have another $120,000 in capital to replace the track. $50,000 was allotted for the woodchuck dust collection system. An additional $40,000 to complete our door forms, which are the key cards that let us in, and that will finalize what we need. The science lab, plumbing and upgrades has been on the capital list for several years. So we allotted this year $120,000. Furniture for that's already been ordered. We're just waiting for it to come in. We have $32,000 allotted for a pilot technology program on devices and classroom furniture setup. We're still in the process of figuring out what's going to be best suited to the district. $52,000 for a Chromebook lease, which is a recurring lease year to year, and also us plus lease $90,000. So we're in a good place. A lot of those projects are right now on their way out to bid or have begun. So you'll see progress and work starting probably in the fall. And then we talk a little bit about grants, which is another source of funding to our district. So the grants comes either from federal, state, or some of them are private. I've listed in this sheet. I'll try to go through it. So we had support from the government regarding COVID reopening. So we had an ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, and now we have an ESSER 3 coming in. So if you read through the grants, the ESSER 3, the grant that we've been allotted through the state is $390,615, and I'll talk about a little bit about what we're thinking of spending that on going forward. The ESSER 2 grant has a remaining balance of $12,287, and then the rest of the grants, school improvement grant, we have $962 in the balance. We have not received our allotment for '22. The summer vacation grant is expended probably by now because the summer program's over, but at the time we had $17,000 there. School sped IDA grant is at $0. The school early childhood grant is at $0. Sped program improvement carried over about $10,000. Early childhood will be expended. Title I is about $2,000. And then there's the other title grants and the MEDCO grant. MEDCO grant we have received our FY '22 allotment of $330,045. And a lot of these grants we have to. That the window isn't open yet to apply. We'll be applying for them to get our FY '22 funding. FY grant funding has not been, as I said, yet allocated except for the MEDCO grant. Grant funds are also used to employ approximately 14.7 staff, which is important to see that we're using all of our funding to supply the district with the services that we need. And then we get into the revolving. I'm not going to go through every one unless you'd like me to. These are all our revolving accounts, which is where we charge fees. All our opening balances are listed here. Overall, we have $1.1 million in an opening balance, anywhere from AP fees, PSO, CEF,
athletic revolving, preschool revolving, high school, kindergarten, transportation, rental facilities. So all of these are our either private grants or gifts or donations from different groups, or fees that are being charged for services.
Is this still being shared, Dr. Summers? Not up.
It is.
Okay.
These accounts cover the salaries for approximately 12.9 personnel that are related to the account to which they are paid. So for the school, overall school budget and the funding, the conclusion at this point in the school year, without the usual concerns of unanticipated tuition expenses, which change day to day, or utility costs that may spike during the winter months. The budget's proceeding based on projections. We're in a good place. No concerns right now. We'll know more when the school gets up and running and to see what our expenditures are looking like. And then I get into this reporting there, but then if you go further back, I want to talk a little bit about the ESSER 3.
It's at the end of this, correct?
It's probably the second to the last, maybe, or maybe the third from the last, fourth up from the last.
That it?
So the ESSER 3, as I said earlier, we were allotted $390,615. 20% of that allotment must go to loss of instruction. Pretty much all of it is going to loss of instruction, I think, based on what we as an administrative team in subcommittees have met and discussed, what our needs are, what each school, thinks they need to get the loss of instruction back and close the gaps. So, at Osgood, we've, recommended to spend money on a halftime reading specialist for a 2-year period. So year 1 and year 2. And it's a Deerfield, a halftime reading specialist again for year 1 and year 2. At the elementary level, we're going to purchase the readers workshop for year 1 and year 2. Osgood also math is key. So 0.2 math specialists will be increasing. 2 of our math specialists, and I think are 0.8 right now. So they're going to probably go to 1.0. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So that's at Osgood and at Deerfield. Year 1. We're going to have to grant fund that, and the hopes is in year 2, our budget can absorb that so we can continue with full-time math specialists at the elementary levels. K-8 iReady in year 1 will purchase through the grant. The middle school and high school, we're going to continue to fund our high-touch custodial cleaning because that seems to work very well. We were down 2 custodians based on a survey, so the hope is in year 2, the budget will absorb one of the custodians. And the revolving account, because the rental revolving account can absorb the cost of the second custodian. And then at the middle of high school, the suggestion was made that we needed 0.5 or an increase of a 0.5 social worker in year 1. There's a remaining balance of about $16,000. I just assigned it to PPE. We don't know whether we'll need PPE or not, but it's there, and I thought I should put something there. So, and that kind of expends that grant, which we can stretch over a 2-year period.
And you can see the themes in it. Dr. Scoggins, certainly, I'm going to back up a little bit here. This is a challenge for me to do the camera and talk. But you can see that obviously early numeracy and early literacy are major factors for us in making sure that we help students get a leg up and continue the learning that has been challenged through the pandemic for sure. Readers Workshop, which we talked a bit about when we were asked questions about reading and literacy and students coming back. This is a way that we can consistently provide balanced literacy model throughout the district. And I know Lydia knows more about me than this, so if I'm missing it.
It's a seemingly self-defined term, but perhaps also like lost instruction. What specifically do you mean by that?
Oh, I didn't say lost instruction.
No, that's the
Oh.
phrase that they
Desi
use,
should say.
Desi is using that, so that's, but yeah, it's really,
I know you didn't say it.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's what Desi's putting it.
That's what
Correct.
they're into the grant.
Right.
well,
So-
yeah, and it's not our terms, that's why,
Yeah.
but it is we do have to look at where unfinished learning is happening or where, there may be some tension in what we were delivering and what kids were taking in. And one of the things that I learned very quickly as an assistant superintendent, and I know Dr. Scoggins did this before me because my career has been as a teacher at the secondary level, is the importance of early numeracy and literacy. I mean, I knew it, but I really learned it when I got here. And that just sets the train rolling for everything that's great to come in middle and high school. And, to attend to that seemed a no-brainer for us as a leadership team. We didn't blink twice on it. And the custodians, as Sue mentioned, we had a study that happened a few years back that I know you're all aware of that showed we were very short of custodians. And this is a way to bolster that in a time when it needs to be bolstered. And that social worker comes in really handy for our BRIGHT program, which is the Bridge to Resiliency and Youth Transition Program at our middle and high school. And it will really help that social emotional need of our older students. Have gone through a lot. All of our kids have gone through a lot. So I think they're good. I feel really good about this of ideas, but we certainly want to get any input you may have about this as well. We did review this with our finance and our finance committee.
Okay. Does that include your report?
No.
It does not?
No, it doesn't.
Great.
The last
You know,
page.
we're going to questions.
Just quick.
All right. No, take your time.
The last page, I just want to, touch base on all the projects. I know, kind of a project update. Because there was a lot done over the last year. So kudos to the facilities and custodians, IT, the whole group. I mean, even though we were in a pandemic, they put out a lot of projects. We did the middle school upgrade, so they had their own entrance with security and bulletproof glass, new fobs. We completed the sidewalk replacement project at the middle high school by the gym lobby. They did several major painting projects at all three schools last summer. We did the flooring project at Deer Hill over the summer, which included replacing all the one-out flooring and the cold face in the hallways. We replaced the middle high school auditorium projector. We replaced the classroom window hardware at Deer Hill. We installed 6 additional classroom window AC units at Deer Hill. I know it doesn't sound much, but those windows aren't made to have ACs put in them. So, I mean, it took some fabricating to get that. They're working on fixing the leaks at the high school business office, or our business office, I should say, because it gets a little wet when it rains. We installed the 2 AC.
Where?
Couple places near my office.
We can fix that one later.
Yeah, okay.
It leaks in the superintendent's office a little bit.
Yeah, it leaks to some other
It
places.
leaks in some file areas.
It's not the top priority, but we do want to have that.
Those things can spiral out of control, so.
Interestingly enough, we have a school facilities committee update coming up. So.
That's right.
We installed 2 AC split units in the Deer Hill music rooms. We fixed all the clocks at Deer Hill and worked for years. And it was just a simple fix. Painted all second floor classrooms in the middle school. We replaced the courtyard doors at Deer Hill specifically for Chairman McClellan.
Yes, big cheers.
Done. Currently, all the floors are being waxed and stripped. The high school offices have been painted. A lot of the classrooms have been painted. We replaced all the water bubblers with hydration stations.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney.
There's new lighting and painting in the middle school and high school cafeteria happened over the last summer. Ongoing, like I said, a lot of painting going on right now in the middle school and the high school, and lighting. So all of our fluorescent lights will be replaced with LEDs in the common areas. They're kind of neat. They dim and turn on and off. You don't have to sensor based, so it's supposed to save us all kinds of energy. So I just wanted to touch base on all the projects that, and there's probably many more, but those are the big ones that pop out of me.
Just out of curiosity, on the LED thing, was there a grant or anything that was available for those?
There's an incentive.
Yeah.
There was an incentive, so it didn't cost the district anything. It basically cost us some savings. So the savings that we get, the company takes a percentage for 3 years and then it's ours.
No-brainer.
So it was a no-brainer. I mean, that's just a big thank you to all our crew that, has been working amongst everything else going on with the pandemic. Got a lot of things done. That concludes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Owen.
Thank you.
Questions, Cleary?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for this very thorough presentation, Mrs. Owen. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Cleary. Mr. Dial?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mr. Kearney, did you hear Dr. Sullivan talk about the custodians?
Yes, this is great. Yeah, this is the great presentation, Mrs. Owen. I just want to see if we can go back to the capital fund, outlay funds. Is there any way we can kind of put a timetable when you think they're going to be accomplished on the right-hand side of that?
I can try to work through that. It's really based on availability of supplies and materials. We have to go out to bid for a lot of the things.
Maybe just the status, then it's the timeframe.
Right,
In
yes,
progress, out of bid,
Yes.
We are
I mean-
putting together some timelines for all of this, so.
Yes, we are putting timelines involved. I mean, the priorities are the middle high school HVAC, and
Yeah.
the sprinklers. I mean, so those are the first two that are going out. And, whenever we can get vendors in to get the work beginning is, so I can definitely give your status, each month, really, how it's going.
That's great, especially with the AC. As we know, with the mask mandate, we want to make sure that all the schools have proper air conditioning or air handlers. So the ventilation is big, and I know that's a big concern with our district, and I appreciate that. Also appreciate your team. I know this is not just one person. This is a whole team of custodians and the town, and we're just so grateful to be able to put some of these things together. Also, that said, if we can look at the revolving accounts as well, I noticed the school lunch has $313,384 in it. Geez, that would hire a lot of teachers. Do we need that kind of money in there? And if we could we transfer that into the general fund and hire more teachers with it?
The quick answer to that is no. So.
Okay.
What-
Just hopeful thinking. That's
Because that's money generated from the students from purchasing lunches and our state reimbursements. There is a plan with the Director of Food Services. She had originally planned on upgrading a lot of our kitchens, but over the last year, that kind of got nixed. So she's putting together a proposal to purchase some new equipment, to upgrade some of the serving lines. Hopefully, we'll be able to utilize them going forward. Like I said, a lot of lunch.
yeah. I don't think that costs $300,000 though. I mean, to be honest, to be honest, we might have to make a decision what's best for the students coming up if we even renew the contract that we have, and if we don't, look at other vendors. So my question is, why can't we take the $300,000 and put it into the general fund and hire teachers with it? Because there's no $300,000 worth of equipment. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of that stuff's brand new. I mean, they got a lot of stainless steel. We got a lot of stuff that's in there. We got new freezers, new refrigerators. I mean, I've talked to chefs in town that say that they wish they had the kitchen that we had. The school survey that went out, parents are not happy with the food in the schools. So we have to look at what's best for the student. And if we're sitting on $300,000 and we're not utilizing that, and we're not hiring computer science teachers or math specialists, we should all look at that. And I guess my question is, again, how come we can't take that money and hire teachers with it?
Money has to go back into the food service program.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I mean, you can't take it and allot it for a teacher. We can take it and add cafeteria staff. We can take it and, add another food service person, equipment, different food, anything along those lines, purchasing a van for them to transport food. We can't take revolving money that's been reimbursed from the state or collected for lunch fees and put it towards a teacher.
But to Paul's point, though, I think we should have a plan for what we're gonna do with the money. That's just, yeah.
Right, and I have met with her, and she's putting together, I mean, I can tell you, her plan is probably gonna eat up at least $100,000 of that, easy.
But that would be something, Paul, that on the Budget and Finance Committee,
Yes, on the subcommittees
we should be talking about. But I just to bolster what Sue said, we wish we could use that for that, but for teachers, but we're not able to. And I don't think it's even a situation where we can move any money.
So we could do a lot of things, right? We can hire a chef, we can hire a dietitian, We can serve filet mignon. I mean, we got $300,000, right? I mean, we can free kids for a long time with that money, correct? We can build gardens with it. I just want to let the district know, we have a lot of money there to make sure that our kids eat nutritious food, especially when we have this virus going along. As we all know it, you know, you have to be strong, not only physically to fight this off, you have to make sure that you have enough nutrients and vitamins in your diet. So, you know, I really, really want to look at this in the finance committee, exactly what we can do to enhance that wellness of the kids so that they have a better food experience at our school. Because, you know, out of a 1 in 5, we got a 1. So if we don't see any kind of improvement, I mean, a lot of improvement, we've been promised improvement. I haven't seen any. So then we have to look at other ways that we might be able to look at other districts and see what they're doing. And if it's, you know, inviting some other people that come in that do this kind of work that can bring us a better product, then we should be open to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, Mr. Kearney, I should mention, you know, the subject of food, we'll have more information coming out very soon to the community, but we are in a situation where we have free lunches again for the year. So that's, which is fabulous. I'm very happy about that. I haven't been able to say that I'm very happy about a lot of things recently, but I am very happy. I know
Which
that
also brings us in a bigger reimbursement rate.
it will bring us in. So I think this is a definite subject for our, I'm looking at Lance over here, but for you too, Mr. Kearney, for our budget and finance next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you again. This is a great
I
presentation.
think if I could, I mean, I know we haven't gotten to the subcommittee and liaison announcements yet, but maybe, Paul, to your point, the wellness committee should consider different, like, I love your garden idea, you know, more gardens for produce, and maybe there's an opportunity to collaborate there. I don't know.
Mr. Kearney, you and I talk about this all the time. I mean, there's a lot of room for improvement. This isn't to besmirch anyone's previous efforts, but you and I constantly, you know, sort of pontificate about the room for improvement with the food services. And I think that probably goes for many public schools, not just our district. We can do a lot better, I think, for kids generally in Massachusetts. And I think this is an important conversation to have in depth in subcommittee, and then put it on as an actual agenda, standing agenda item for a while until we see marked improvement in the offerings. And again, our food services department is wonderful. They work really hard, really hard. And I saw that manifest itself in many different ways throughout the last year that we had. So this isn't meant to say, oh, well, we have some suboptimal, terrible food services department. It's just that I think it's time for a change. And I think that generally we've been sort of stagnant in food service in public schools. I feel like the same type of lunches that were available to me when I was in, you know, public school. And there's more of, I think, an emphasis placed on nutrition, but I think we can do like amazing things with it, you know, farm to fork type stuff. There's no reason we can't. So, but it takes a lot of time, and I think we should start it. And there's a lot of passion for that on this committee. So I would really love it if the subcommittees did that, and then we started bringing it to the open meeting and talking about it, and hopefully the community at large would actually show some passion there too, and get involved and share some ideas, because I think it's like sort of a blank canvas right now.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm excited to work with it. You know, it's something that I think that we can all work together. Like you said, they are wonderful people that provide food services for our children. They stepped it up during the COVID with the seniors, feeding the seniors. And yeah, I agree. I just think, and the equipment, to be quite honest with you, I think is pretty good. I just think that like some community input, such as bringing in a chef and bringing in some dietitians to try to balance the food along with the wellness committee, I think is a great idea, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. St. Ange.
Yeah. I just want to say quickly, because Mr. Kearney, I understand your concern about that budget line, but I feel like in part of your expressing that concern, you were saying that we aren't hiring certain teachers, and we literally are hiring reading specialists, math specialists,
computer science teachers, and even adding more with our ESSER 3 funds. So I just think it's important for the community to hear that message and understand that that truly is happening. So I just want to reinforce that.
And did that during the pandemic rather than cutting.
Correct,
Cutting. We
correct.
actually added.
Correct.
the support
We've
for those-
only increased
Yeah.
our support in those specialized areas,
Absolutely.
in literacy, in numeracy, in social emotional wellness, and computer science. So I think that that is actually, we're on a really great trajectory for that. I just want that to be on the record. A question I have that came up to me at Camp Drop-Off today. So if you aren't able to answer it, that's totally fine. A parent who is very well versed in what building inspection type stuff said, I noticed some screens that were loose at the Deer Hill and this and that. And I was like, okay, I don't notice that stuff because I'm a reading specialist, not a building inspector. If there's something like that that's happening, and I know there's the school due process, but is there just a screen fixing budget that happens, or because that's ventilation related, is that something that if there isn't a budget for that, it can be tacked on to ESSER 3 because we want windows open and no bugs coming in and kids breathing fresh air?
Was it Deer Hill?
I think it was Deer Hill, and I can also,
We just had.
They did it all the windows.
Yes.
so this is possibly something, was that happening in summer?
It happened.
It happened, yeah.
Okay, so this could have been something observed in the past,
Mhm.
checking.
Yeah.
And again, it's
Maybe take
my eyes don't see that.
Well, it's a couple
Yeah,
things.
no.
One
Okay.
is, it's a good point.
So that's awesome that it's been done. Great.
But it's a good point to be able to.
But
do
just think
walkthroughs.
creatively,
Right.
and also when we used ESSER 2 funds for some of the hydration stations, right? Just thinking creatively about those funds, about how we're problem solving. It's so great to see that there's that PPE line, but if other things come up, it can be edited off, right? Okay,
This
great.
kind of ties to the point about the, I don't mean to laugh, but the latches on
The two doors.
right.
Yeah,
Like we need to make, and we will.
Right.
We need to make sure as we start school in the fall that all these
yes,
things
we need to do a
are.
latch confirmation lock.
You got it, yeah.
No, it's great that people are noticing. Yeah, reach out to the principals, they put in a school due,
Yeah.
definitely.
Awesome.
You should expect that.
We can't cover every inch of the
Yeah.
building.
Remember, our capital walks have been very important too. That's
Yeah.
really. we get-
Mr. Kearney, you're not mute, oh my
I got
God,
it.
you're not muted, so we can hear the
I got it.
ambient sound, okay?
Oh, just a thought I had thinking of food service. I don't think that we compost. Is that accurate?
We do.
We do compost? And where is it composted? On a large scale? Is it done at every school?
It's done at every school. I know it's done at the middle high school. I'm embarrassed to say I'm not 100% sure it's done at it's done at Deer Hill. It's not, I don't know if it's done at us.
I just didn't know how actively and aggressively that was happening.
It's the green team does it very actively at the middle and high school.
Speaking as a former UVMer who
Oh, yeah.
put a compost program into place in Burlington. And I know that just there are so many ways that the community can watch if food service funds can be allocated in that area. I just think that's a great way to reduce our waste and
Absolutely.
promote wellness and also more conscious eating, not
And we have
wasting.
classes that are centering themselves around
Yeah.
that too, particularly Doc West class in high
Awesome.
school. And we have, I know, Coach Fensel is leading. the
Yeah.
leading
It
team at
sound, I just feel like that's a great opportunity. It's happening it has momentum at the middle and high school. And then those kids can come down
Yeah.
and help get the momentum going in
Absolutely.
Austin and Deer Hill, like we saw at the end of the year with Juneteenth. Like, my kids were so excited when the big kids came down. They always are. But to kind of get those positive habits.
They're great.
You know.
And remember, we do have that it's a close by comparison, a really strong connection to Holly Hill Farm
Yes.
and John Belver and crew
Yes.
who are very involved with our gardens.
Right.
I'm impressed by that. I know Dark
Oh, I am
Storm comes
too.
from a school that did a lot with gardens.
Yeah.
So you probably see very similar things.
Yes.
I do, yeah, and it's, I just met today with Principal Scott, and we've been talking about really building up an internship program, using our high school students, giving them opportunities within the community, but also how can we grow things such as working in the gardens from high school, helping them, at the lower grades,
Yeah.
or just really building up those partnerships. So that's something we're going to focus on in the next couple of years. It's also part of our strategic plan.
Huge part of this.
But that, but those are really important ideas. So thank you.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
Great, thank you, and thank you for this report. I do love your summaries.
Thank you, Ms. St. Ange. I don't have any questions, so thank you so much for that
Thank you.
concise but thorough update. So that concludes the finance report. We move on to the next section of the agenda, which is the school committee section. We are starting with a policy review that is listed and was requested by our policy subcommittee, consisting of
Is that our
Clarion and Ms. St. Ange.
BFA, our mask policy?
Do we want to look at that?
So,
again?
yeah, so we, I was going to raise this issue if you guys, if you're looking at the mask, is Mrs. Cleary, is that why it's on there for the masking policy issue?
Yes, it is. But we had, remember I thought that we should add it specifically and then we didn't. I don't know. I don't honestly, if I can remember what the outcome was of that.
So here is the deal with this. If that's the only policy review, I was going to raise this anyway as a topic not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours because of what just happened in the last 48 hours. So obviously our standard mask policy needs to expressly reference the new mask policy that we just voted on for, until October 6th.
I have that on the screen.
Great, thank you. So I had, I don't think it matters where we do in the meeting because we have policy review up here. We can wait until later in the meeting, but I think obviously it behooves everyone just to do it earlier. We've already had the discussion, the debate.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to figure out here is how we incorporate that into the integrated into the standing policy. What I had by way of suggestion was just incorporating it by reference, by express reference at the bottom of the policy, and I had language to the effect of incorporated by reference in the masking policy. Is the masking policy approved by the school committee at its August 16, 2021 special meeting? Said policy shall be reevaluated regularly, but shall supersede, I forget, is it EBCFA or what?
CBCFA.
EBCFA through October 6, 2021, or until otherwise rescinded by majority vote of the school committee or superseded by order of the Cohasset Board of Public Health. That's what I was thinking of doing, so that we don't have to, then we can just sort of put that section in there and then just incorporate it into the standing policy.
Doesn't EBCFA though, we just recently revised that to broaden it out to be more of a, isn't that what we?
We
We did.
reviewed it, we just hadn't voted on it.
I'm just,
And even if it's generally sort of evolving, we sort of tailored a special, we came to a specially tailored mask policy. So I don't want to be getting into the wording of that again. We've already done it.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that was the easiest way, because again, this is a temporary, we might be changing this one way or the other on October 6th, in our meeting. So that's why I was thinking it's easy. I'm just trying to think of the simplest way of doing it, but open it up for discussion.
I personally, I like the idea of putting it maybe as an exhibit to, instead of replacing EBCFA in its total,
Right.
saying for the period until October 6th, please see attached exhibit A, which is the policy with respect to masks and face coverings. And then that way it's clear and that way we don't have to worry about wording. But I will defer to our policy subcommittee if that's something you were planning to take up.
You just put an asterisk at the title of the policy, put a footnote, and then attach that temporary mask policy.
I guess it's
We're
probably.
talking about, sorry, I just want to make sure it's hard because I'm not in the room. We want to take a vote to approve the revised EBCFA, but put a reference in there to this stating that it will be reviewed on October 6th and may change if the Board of Health changes their guidance.
Yes, so it is effective and through October 6, 2021, or until otherwise rescinded by majority vote of the school committee or superseded by order of the Cohasset Board of Public Health. So yes, what you just said with the additional language I just said.
So I'm just wondering if it makes more sense to say this will be in effect until rescinded by a vote of the school committee or superseded by the Board of Public Health, and just say that it will be reviewed at our October 6th meeting. Do you know what I mean? Like, rather than saying we're going to rescind it in October, just make it a point to say that that's when we'll be considering it. But I feel like I don't want to create expectations that then.
I'm not saying it's going to be rescinded on October 6th. I'm saying it's effective until October 6th, which forces us to address it on October 6th, which I want to do.
Okay.
Because we've told people that we're going to reevaluate it. So whether it is voting to keep it or voting to change it in some way or voting to rescind it, either way, I'd like to lock us into having to review it on October 6th, because then it won't be effective on October 7th.
Okay.
What?
Then it will just go back to the Evcfa without the asterisk, and we'll vote for that or to keep it, right?
Excuse me?
So on October 6th, we'll either vote, because we would have to amend the policy if this is, we would have to amend the reference in the policy, right? So either it will go to this version of Evcfa that we're voting on, or, you know, keep the asterisk. Like, we just have to make sure we're,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, but either way, we're going to be locked into taking some action on October 6th. Yes.
Okay.
Just so you're aware, right now I have the mask face covering policy. It just has one line in it about all students and staff are required to wear masks on school buses. That's additional in that, and because that was something operational. And I mentioned that in my email. It doesn't mean that we've added it formally, but it is something we
No,
have.
it's a federal mandate that should be in the language of the policy. We don't have a choice on it, but it makes sense to put it there so that it's in the same place.
And that's something I think we could include in our vote to approve the amendments to the policy, consistent with our prior decision. So that makes sense.
I just wanted you to know, you just can't see what's in the screen now.
Because I mean, that's the language in context, but I don't think it's yet. I mean, it's what we want to do, but we need to get it into a policy. If I'm understanding.
Yeah, by explicit reference. So I don't want to adjust the language of the general policy, because we purposely made that so it's evolving. I just want to, I think it's easier to make a footnote not a footnote, an asterisk with a footnote on the main policy that expressly references this policy, which will be attached to it, and we will be forced to review on October 6th, 2021. Okay, so unless everyone wants to discuss this any further, tell me, and we can. Otherwise, I'm going to try and articulate a motion right now. Okay, so I'd seek a motion at this time to approve the Cohasset School Committee Policy Evcfa as revised, with the addition of an express reference to the policy we adopted or approved, at our August 16th, 2021 special meeting, noting that that policy will be in effect until October 6th, 2021, or until otherwise modified by majority vote of the school committee or superseded by order of the Cohasset Board of Public Health. Is there a motion to that effect?
Can we strike the superseded by the Board of Health? Because we don't need to agree to that. If they have a policy that supersedes us, it does, or it doesn't, whether or not we agree to it.
Right, it's out of your hands.
Sure.
I think it is nice to note it. I mean, we do a lot of noting to be very specific.
I'm indifferent. I just think it's a little bit more,
I think it's more
explicit.
transparent and people understand it and weren't sitting in people thinking about policy.
But if there's not a second, then you can articulate a motion if you see that. I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm just trying to do my best here to give us something to vote on, but.
Well, I'll move to include that language.
Okay, so let's see if there's a second. Is there a second to that motion? It's been made by Mrs. St. Ange.
Can I ask a point of clarification? We're talking about the blue line policy, right?
Talking about the what?
The
The blue line policy that we reviewed last meeting.
The revised, yes, as revised.
Second.
Okay, motion to seconded by Mrs. Cleary. So all in favor, Mrs. Cleary?
Aye.
Dial?
Can I ask a clarification, because I don't have the Evcfa in front of me. So this is the one that was presented, not at the last meeting, but the meeting
Yes,
before?
yes. Not a special meeting, not the regularly scheduled meeting that we did the first read at.
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Kearney,
Nay.
Mrs. St. Ange,
Aye.
aye. Craig McClellan, that motion carries by a vote of 4 ayes and 1 nay. So we will implement those modifications to the policy.
Mr. Chairman, can you do me a favor? Can you send me that language so that I can I just don't want to mess it up, and you're a lawyer, and I feel very confident in your ability to put that in.
I already did.
Great.
It's in your inbox.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome, although it's a PDF. So I don't have a Word doc of it. Because I didn't
No,
try.
I mean the asterisk. I know I have the order.
Oh, yeah,
Order.
sure.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That would be helpful. I just don't want to screw it up. Thank you.
Okay. Does that do it for the policy update?
Yes.
We sort of killed 2 birds with 1 stone there with,
Yeah, the topic's not
Yeah,
anticipated.
I mean, it just made sense to talk about it, especially where we'd have probably more people watching right now. So.
It was not anticipated.
Okay, so moving on, School Facilities Committee got a substantial update here. The School Facilities Committee is completely filled. There are 9 nominations that have been approved. There are 9 members. We are currently working on scheduling a meeting in the month of August with 9 different people doing different things, some with, showing college freshmen or prospective college freshmen to schools, things like that. So there's a lot going on for people right now. We're doing our best to get together quickly. We wanted to do it in August, but it might not happen to early September because everyone's schedules, but that is going to happen. It's a thing. So that's great. There is one order of business for the school committee related to the School Facilities Committee, and this was a result of my perhaps haste to get our nominees made. I did not realize that we need to specifically articulate which members have which terms. So we have nominated 3 and approved 3 members. One is Kathleen Siglarski Burns, who is an elementary parent in the district and an attorney. And she was one of the very first people to volunteer for it. We nominated her. And Mr. Kearney and myself volunteered ourselves for the other 2 because we were trying to get a quorum as soon as possible. So the question before us is, there are 3 nominees. One needs to be a 1-year term, one needs to be a 2-year term, and one needs to be a 3-year term. Mrs. Siglarski Burns has volunteered for the 3-year term by way of information. It's up to you whether you think that's what you want to do. And I can volunteer for the 2-year. Mr. Kearney, I don't want to take anything away from you, but I'm certainly willing to do the 2-year. It's up to you what you want to do. Are you comfortable doing the 1-year? Would you rather do the 2-year? I mean, I would rather have the non-committee member be the longest term. I don't know about you, but that's just my thought.
First of all, I'm just so proud to serve with you on this committee, and whatever works, I would absolutely be favorable to 1, 2, or 3, but 1 works. Yes.
Okay, so I think this is simple. I mean, so why don't we just make it simple? I feel like I don't want to articulate the motion. I have to abstain.
May I make a motion?
You may make a motion.
I would like to move that Kathleen Siglarski Burns has a 3-year term on the School Facilities Committee. Craig McClellan has a 2-year term on the School Facilities Committee, and Paul Kearney has a 1-year term on the School Facilities Committee.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mrs. St. Ange, seconded by Mr. Dial. All in favor, Mrs. Cleary.
Aye.
Mr. Dial.
Aye.
Mr. Kearney, you must abstain.
Abstain.
Mrs. St. Ange.
I say so here. Aye.
I abstain, Craig McClellan. So that motion carries by a vote of 3 ayes, 2 abstentions. thank you all. That's something that we had neglected to do because of my poor guidance, but I just didn't know until fairly recently. So that said, we will be meeting. So we should have Mr. Kieran and I should have a substantive update in the not too distant future on where we're going. I'm sure we will elect a chair and a vice chair and a secretary at the first meeting and decide sort of first steps. So it should be exciting.
Very exciting.
That's the update there. So reports from subcommittees. Let's go in reverse alphabetical order, starting with Mrs. St. Anne.
I don't have any subcommittee updates or liaison updates. I do have a question though. A few weeks ago, you had mentioned that you were gonna kind of take your show on the road to the farmer's market.
Yes,
Do you have dates or more information about that?
I do, yes.
Dr. Sullivan?
Absolutely, and I have forgotten to send that to the committee, although we've sent them at the.
Let's announce it then.
So this is a good time. So I will be at the farmer's market on August 26th from 2 to 4. And September 2nd,
They're Thursdays. Let me bring up my calendar.
it's that first week in September 1.
Okay, September 2nd.
September 2nd from 2 to 4, and I may stay a little longer, depending, but very happy to talk to anyone about our exciting strategic plan. Might bring some friends like Dr. Collins to maybe one of them, and maybe.
And all members of the school committee.
All
are
members of the
welcome to
school
attend.
committee.
I mean, we're there anyway.
We won't be deliberating,
We'll
we'll just be
deliberate.
there to talk.
I'll
Yep.
be eating the popcorn.
And there'll be a dunk tank.
Yeah, well, we'll have a lot of people dunking, I'm sure. But it is
Only kidding, it'll be dunk.
it's a great opportunity to have some conversations in a pretty relaxed atmosphere where we can, hear your thoughts on all these very important issues and really the direction we're moving in the next 3 years, which I'm very excited about. So, August 26th and September 2nd, 2 to 4 at the farmer's market. I'll be right next to the turnips. I'm just kidding.
All right, thank you, Mrs. St. Anne and Dr. Sullivan. Mr. Kearney, do you have any updates?
No, other than our, tomorrow is our first facilities meeting, correct? 6 o'clock?
Yes.
Yes, very excited about that. And no other updates other than looking for, a good rest of the summer and looking forward to the fall.
Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Kearney. Mr. Dial, do you have any updates?
No updates, but I did hear the suggestion and Ms. Owen, I think it would be for our next budget finance committee to talk about some of the food service options. And let's also make sure we get that on the calendar and look at some of the forward-looking projects. And we'll have an update for next meeting or maybe after that.
Thank you, Mr. Dial. Mrs. Caleri, how about you? We got a vigil coming up soon, right?
We do. Just a reminder that Safe Harbor, Safe Harbor is hosting their vigil. It's the 31st on the Common from 6:45 to 8 p.m. It's their overdose awareness vigil. Also, I've been asked to share that the Youth Ambassador Program registration is open. And so anyone who is interested in registering as a youth ambassador, I know we have lots of fabulous folks who've done that in the past. They can go to safeharborcohasset.org for more information.
Thank you, Mrs. Caleri. I don't think I have any updates other than school facilities. So that does it for that section. Unless anyone has some last minute things, we'll move into approval of minutes, which we do not have any to approve tonight.
I'll look for you next time. I've been on
Sure.
mom mode, not
Yes.
minute time.
Yes.
Nice agenda item, though.
It sure is, which we like that.
I also do want to thank Kathy Bach.
Yeah.
who
Yes.
is our
Good
transcriber.
timing for that.
Doing a fabulous job, and she's sat in there by the way.
That was amazing.
I imagine we're about to end, which is 4 hours earlier than the last meeting we had. So, and she sat through that and took great notes.
Well, no, just didn't just sit through it. went through the battery of her device
She
and
did.
then logged on in another device and
Correct.
managed to finish.
That's
And
right. So,
sent me most of her notes prior to this meeting tonight,
It's
so.
amazing. Thank you so much, Mrs.
Yeah.
so we're
Bogdan.
very,
Awesome
very
job.
impressed
Thank you
and
so much.
thankful, Ms. Bach.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, we already did the topics not reasonably anticipated. I do not know of any reason to move into executive session tonight. So that brings us to one of the more popular agenda items. Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn has been made by Mr. Dial. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. St. Ange. All in favor, Mrs. Cleary.
Hi.
Mr. Dial.
Aye.
Mr. Kearney.
Aye.
Mrs. St. Ange.
Aye.
Aye, Craig McClellan. That motion unanimously carries, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:22 p.m. Thank you all so much.
Thank
Have a
you
great
for,
night.
thank you for bearing with me on my camera work. I think I'm getting better. I'll do better next time, I promise.
All right, so let's make sure to, in the webinar, we have to stop the
Do it right
meeting
now,
too.
yes.
Okay.